How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, you're going to love this. Okay, so remember about maybe 2-3 weeks back, this article came out from TMZ about how the police had visited Celeste Rivas' home 11 times because it was a troubled home. And we kind of did a few videos on this as what does troubled home mean? What's the context? I mean, why all of a sudden are we turning against the family or attacking Celeste Rivas Hernandez? I mean, why are we now no longer looking at the groomer, David, D4VD? And we kind of made that connection. A lawyer got involved, and all of a sudden the story starts to shift on TMZ. Now, this TikToker here, this creator, he's got the breakdown of the Riverside County 911 calls. Now, remember, the context in this article made it look like it was a troubled home, but there was really no context. But they did try to imply, if you read that article, they did try to imply that she was running away from something, as if the home was a bad home. And then again, the follow-up videos we did were, well, what's a bad home to a teenager? Rules? That they don't want to follow. We really don't have a context of what troubled home means, but they continued to push the narrative that 11 times that home was visited by police, 911 calls, etc. And we knew, hey, when we the context of that is maybe when she ran away, maybe that's not a family that's a troubled home, but a family rather trying to find out where their daughter is. But they were selling an image. Again, it had shifted from David to now the family, or even Celeste Rivas Hernandez with fake IDs and, lying to everyone. It was just so insulting. Now, you do have a family in mourning. And now this gentleman here paints out what these 911 calls were about. He even clarifies some definitions, because if you look at the article from TMZ, when they talk about minor crime investigation or suspicious circumstances, they provide no context. He's going to explain to you what minor crime investigation means, and it literally means a crime that a minor may be involved in. And the way it was shifted here made it look like that there were minor criminal acts being committed. So minor had nothing to do with the age, but rather a description of the criminal act. This gentleman here paints it down very clear. And after you guys watch this, shame on TMZ. Shame on the media outlets that were following this at this point, because while the family was mourning, you went ahead and put out stuff to attack the family. And I think that they should have to come out and correct that story almost immediately. It's the bias of the media. Let me go ahead and show you this video.
Getting a better understanding as to why there were so many 911 calls placed from Celeste Rivas Hernandez's family's home. We do have the Riverside County Sheriff's Department's data warehouse report that does indicate why each call was made, not specifically why, but a general, idea of why the call was placed. Before I start, you are going to hear me say minor criminal incident a lot. This basically refers to an adult calling authorities on a minor. The minor could be doing things like violating curfews, could be in possession of something that they shouldn't be in possession of. They could be loitering. They could be disturbing the peace. They could be running away, could be making threats toward family members or adults, could be any of those things, could be other things. It's when an adult is calling authorities on a minor. We're going to start with 2024. The nature of the call was an MNCIMI, which stands for minor criminal incident. We know that on the 14th, she was last seen by family. I'm assuming that maybe the 15th is when she was reported missing by family the next day. Later that day, there was a follow-up from law enforcement. The next day, on the 16th, there was a follow-up. And then on the 17th, there was a follow-up as well. On February 20th, 2024, another minor criminal incident. And then a few days later, on February 25th, 2024, they did a follow-up. On March 19th, 2024, there were 3 calls placed for minor criminal incident. It looks like all 3 calls were placed at 7:57. Maybe just one call was made to report 3 separate things. On the 26th of March, a few days later, there was a follow-up and then another follow-up on April 1st. The day after that second follow-up on April 2nd, 2024, another minor criminal incident was reported, and the same thing happened again on April 5th, 2024, another minor criminal incident reported. Now, we also know that on Celeste's most recent missing persons flyer, she was last seen by family on April 5th, 2024. So I'm assuming that that has something to do with her going missing. Now, on the 11th, 19th, and 20th, there were follow-up calls made to law enforcement. And then on the 27th, there was a call made for suspicious circumstances. Doesn't say what the suspicious circumstances were, but at this point, Celeste was missing, or so we thought. Remember, she was still coming around family every now and then after she was last seen on April 5th, 2024. On May 23rd, 2024, there was a follow-up, and then the next day, on May 24th, 2024, another minor criminal incident was reported. Now, for a few months, there were no calls to law enforcement made. I'm assuming this is because Celeste was not around her family. The calls started again on August 30th, 2024, and this call was related to passing information or suspicious activity. So I'm wondering if this could have been the family trying to let law enforcement know that they may know where Celeste was. I'm not sure. Again, a couple of months with no calls, and then on Christmas Eve in 2024, a juvenile called law enforcement. I'm wondering if this could be Celeste or if this could have been her brother. Remember, her brother did say that he tried reaching out to law enforcement to let them know where his sister was and who she was with, but they were not taking him seriously. The calls stop again and then start up again on March 29th, 2025, so this year, pertaining to a vandalized vehicle on the property as well as vandalism on the property. On April 27th, 2025, there are 2 calls placed regarding a minor criminal incident again, and then the calls stop completely. We actually don't see anything else as far as 911 calls made until around the time period where Celeste's body was found in David's Tesla in September. I do think that it's interesting that a call was placed from their residence on September 9th, 2025 at 8:41 in the morning. This would have been not even 24 hours after it was made public that a body was found in David's Tesla on September 8th. To me, it looks like the family could have known that this may have been Celeste's body, and they were calling law enforcement to follow up on their investigation about this. I personally find it crazy that we have all of these calls pertaining to incidents with a minor or with minors coming from this household, and CPS was never made aware of any of this to come in and try to help this family. And if they were ever called or notified or ever involved with this family to any capacity, they clearly were not doing enough. I do think that it's interesting to note that there were calls to law enforcement related to minor criminal incidents, so an incident involving a minor, up until April of 2025. Was Celeste's other siblings having issues at home as well? Or is it possible that these calls could have been about Celeste up until April of this year? If they are pertaining to Celeste, then this would indicate that Celeste was not actually missing and was not actually last seen on April 5th, 2024, like her flyer says, and like her information states in the database. But obviously, we already knew that. It also narrows down our timeline a little bit if these calls were about Celeste, because it showcases that she would have been alive in April, at the end of April of 2025. Right now, no persons of interest have still been listed. No suspects have been named. However, it does seem like things are starting to close in, and LAPD is going to have some sort of arrest made in the near future. Of course, as information comes out, I'll be sure to share with you guys. So make sure you're following me and let me know what you think about these call logs and the fact that Celeste could have been around family up until the end of April of 2025.
Now that is coverage. I am just very impressed. I wanted that so bad. He was able to get his hands on that. I follow him on TikTok. He shows up on my feed. What great coverage. And just shame on any media outlet that really took advantage of that with no context, fed it out to the public with no context after they built an implicit bias It's just really good coverage here. I would love your thoughts on that. Hopefully that paints a better picture. We could start putting out what is a bit more factual, a bit more relevant. And if the family is mourning, hopefully the media could stop attacking them because they are victims too. So again, great job. And here's the funniest thing. This is the media. They have tons of resources. They have tons of resources. They could figure this stuff out. They could ask deeper questions, but they choose not to. And it's very, very upsetting. You know, and then they take the lead. So everybody's following what they put out there so blindly just to keep pushing that narrative, but also slightly defer it too, right? Oh, by the way, we're going to push this across, but we heard it at TMZ first. So there's no confidence in any of their storytelling because if something hits the fan, hey, guys, this is what we're getting from TMZ, and we're giving them the credit because they told the story first. Oh, guys, just stop. Just stop. But I would love your thoughts on this. As always, guys, stay safe.